Imagine the scene. A man who once prided himself on being the center of his family, standing in a courtroom where every secret he worked so hard to bury is being dragged into the light. Kody Brown, usually loud and commanding, looks cornered as one revelation after another cuts through the room. The tension is electric. This isn't just about financial records or property disputes. This is about years of betrayal, broken promises, and the painful cost of control. For the first time, the wives who once stood behind him now stand in front of him, each holding the truth in their hands like a weapon. Hi friends, my name is Sophia, and welcome back to TLC's Sister Wives World. If you've been following this journey with me, you know we don't just skim the surface here. We dig into the real emotions, the real struggles, and the turning points that forever change the story. So, if you love keeping up with Sister Wives and you want the full picture behind the headlines, make sure you subscribe and join the conversation in the comments. I really want to hear what you think about what went down in this moment. Because here's the thing, this wasn't just a legal fight. What happened in that courtroom was the physical embodiment of years of pain, silence, and resilience finally boiling over. It was Meri reclaiming her voice after being ignored. It was Gwen shining a light on the emotional cost of growing up in chaos. It was Christine bringing receipts to prove what she endured. And it was Janelle calmly dismantling the foundation of Kody's control. Together, they weren't just testifying. They were rewriting the story of Sister Wives, one shocking truth at a time. Meri Brown has always been one of the most complicated and misunderstood figures in the Sister Wives story. For years, viewers watched her fade into the background while Kody's attention shifted elsewhere. She was the first in. She was standing in her own truth, showing that even the most silenced person in a relationship can reclaim their voice. This wasn't just testimony. This was transformation. For Meri, it wasn't about revenge. It was about finally being heard. And for the fans, it was a moment of pure vindication. The quietest wife had become the loudest truth-teller in the room. If Meri's words shook the room, it was Gwen's voice that cracked it wide open. Gwen has always stood out as one of the most outspoken of Kody's children, and unlike many others who chose to keep their pain private, she's never been afraid to let people know exactly how she feels. On her social media, in interviews, and even in episodes, she has been brutally honest about what it was like growing up in the Brown household, the favoritism, the fractured relationships, and the moments where she felt unsafe. So when she spoke up in this setting, it wasn't just emotional, it was raw, unfiltered truth. Hearing a child's perspective hit harder than anything else that day. Gwen didn't bring financial documents or property disputes. She brought the reality of what it felt like to grow up in a family where her father's attention was conditional. She talked about how the rules never seemed equal, how loyalty to Kody meant everything, and how stepping out of line meant being cast aside. For viewers, none of this was new. We've seen the episodes where the kids quietly admitted they didn't feel close to him, or how they questioned why Robyn's children always seemed to come first. But hearing Gwen spell it out with her own voice, you could practically feel the air leave the room. What made her words so powerful was the vulnerability. Gwen didn't try to sound polished, and she didn't try to protect Kody's image. She spoke like someone who had lived through years of hurt and had finally found the courage to put it into words. She called out the control, the manipulation, and the way the family fractured under his leadership. And the emotion was real. Her voice shook at times, but it never wavered in honesty. As I watched, I kept thinking about those earlier episodes when Kody dismissed his kids' feelings by calling them immature or rebellious. In that courtroom, he couldn't hide behind those excuses anymore. Gwen stood there, not as a rebellious teen, but as a young adult who had seen enough and refused to stay silent. She became the voice for so many of the children who had felt sidelined or silenced, and that carried more weight than any financial statement could. For fans, this moment was heartbreaking and validating all at once. Heartbreaking because no child should ever have to describe feeling unwanted by their own parent, but validating because Gwen's bravery confirmed what so many viewers had suspected for years, that the cracks in this family weren't just between the wives, they ran deep into the children's lives as well. And in that moment, Gwen's truth could not be ignored. Christine's turn in the spotlight felt less like an emotional outpouring and more like a calculated strike. If Meri spoke from years of heartbreak and Gwen spoke from lived childhood pain, Christine came forward with hard evidence that could not be brushed aside. Fans who have followed her journey know that Christine has always been underestimated by Kody. For years, he painted her as emotional, dramatic, or incapable of handling serious matters. But the truth, as we've watched unfold season by season, is that Christine is far sharper and stronger than he ever gave her credit for. And when she revealed her side, she proved it. Christine brought out what so many of us had been waiting to see: the receipts. She talked about how money had been handled in ways that were far from fair, how promises about propertas and family finances never lined up with reality. This was not speculation. These were real patterns that longtime fans had noticed during the show. When Christine tried to buy a home and was met with resistance, when funds mysteriously favored Robyn's household, when family money somehow always ended up serving Kody and Robyn's plans first. All of those moments added up, and Christine laid them bare. What struck me most was how calm she was. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't get flustered. She simply presented what she had seen, what she had lived, and what the records showed. And you could feel the room shift because while emotions can be dismissed, numbers cannot. Christine backed up what viewers had long suspected, that finances were weaponized as a form of control, and by presenting it clearly, she undercut one of Kody's biggest defenses, that he was the provider, the one holding everything together. As someone who watched Christine's slow transformation over the seasons, this moment felt especially powerful. We all remember the Christine who cried in her car when she realized she could no longer stay in a marriage where she wasn't loved. That was the breaking point. But this Christine, standing tall and organized, was a woman who had rebuilt herself. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was proving her worth and exposing the truth that Kody had tried to keep hidden. The irony is that Kody always tried to portray Christine as unstable, yet here she was, the most composed person in the room, armed with facts that spoke louder than his excuses. Fans watching at home couldn't help but cheer for her. This wasn't just a financial testimony. It was Christine reclaiming her power, showing that the woman Kody once dismissed as too emotional was actually the one strong enough to bring his control crashing down with hard evidence. In that courtroom, Christine wasn't just a former wife. She was the truth-teller, with the receipts, and there was no walking back from what she revealed. If Christine's testimony was the thunderclap, Janelle's was the steady rain that soaked through everything Kody had built. Janelle has always been the pragmatic one, the wife who balanced logic and practicality while the rest of the family wrestled with emotions. For years, she kept the peace, managed the finances, and tried to make plural marriage function. But when it was her turn to speak, she didn't need dramatic flair or fiery emotion. Janelle's strength has always been in her quiet clarity, and that's exactly how she delivered her truth. Janelle reminded everyone of the promises Kody had made over the years. Promises about land, about investments, about family resources being shared fairly. Viewers of Sister Wives know this storyline well, especially the endless arguments about Coyote Pass. For years, Kody dangled the dream of building homes for everyone on that property, while in reality, nothing ever happened. Money disappeared into projects that only benefited Robyn's side, and Janelle was left to juggle the finances while Kody spun excuses. In that courtroom moment, she calmly connected the dots. What made Janelle's testimony so impactful was how she framed it. She wasn't angry, she was matter-of-fact. She explained how her own financial sacrifices had been brushed aside, how Kody's decisions consistently left her children at a disadvantage, and how promises about shared property never materialized. It was all delivered with that same even tone we've seen on the show. The tone that says, "I'm not here to fight, I'm here to tell the truth." And Kody's reaction said everything. He has always underestimated Janelle, assuming that her calm nature meant she would never push back. But fans know better. We've seen her hold her ground when he tried to pressure her into moving into one big house. We've seen her call him out when his loyalty tilted entirely toward Robyn. And in this moment, Janelle proved once again that her quiet strength was the most dangerous thing to his defense. For the fans watching, This testimony felt like a long time coming. Janelle has always been respected for her independence and her level-headedness, but here she showed that independence doesn't mean silence. She stood firmly on the foundation of facts and lived experience, dismantling years of excuses with simple, undeniable truth. Together with Meri, Gwen, and Christine, Janelle completed the picture. Each woman had brought her own piece of the puzzle: emotion, raw truth, evidence, and logic. And by the time Janelle finished speaking, it was clear that Kody's entire narrative had collapsed. Janelle didn't need to shout to be heard. She didn't need drama to make an impact. Her quiet strike landed with precision, and it left no doubt about who had really been carrying the weight of this family all along. By the time Act 5 began, the air in that courtroom felt heavy, like everyone present knew they had just witnessed the collapse of Kody's carefully built empire. The wives had spoken, the children had spoken, the evidence had been laid bare, and now the fallout was impossible to ignore. Kody, who for years controlled the narrative on camera, suddenly had no control left. His usual defenses, blaming the wives for being disloyal, calling the kids immature, or insisting that he was the only real provider, crumbled in the face of undeniable testimony. His shoulders slumped, his eyes darted nervously, and for the first time, he looked cornered. Fans watching this moment described it as surreal. The man who had always demanded loyalty was now utterly alone. The wives, once fractured by jealousy and rivalry, now stood united. This wasn't about plural marriage anymore. It wasn't even just about property or money. This was about betrayal, about years of being dismissed, manipulated, and cast aside, finally boiling over into one defining confrontation. And the power dynamic had completely shifted. Kody, once the center of the family, was now on the outside, watching as the women he underestimated rose together against him. For the fans, this fallout was more than just drama. It was justice. It was the validation of every moment we had watched where the women were silenced, every scene where Kody favored Robyn while ignoring the others, every broken promise about unity and family. Now, those truths had been spoken out loud, in a way that could never be taken back. And the impact didn't end in that courtroom. Viewers left with questions. What happens next for Kody? Will he cling to Robyn and try to rebuild a smaller family? Or will this be the moment that defines the end of his reign entirely? One thing was certain: the sister wives' story had shifted forever. What began as a show about faith and family had turned into a cautionary tale about control, favoritism, and the resilience of women who finally refused to stay silent. In the end, the fallout wasn't just about Kody losing his grip. It was about the wives, Meri, Christine, Janelle, and the voices of the children, reclaiming their power. And that is what makes this one of the most unforgettable chapters in Sister Wives history. And that brings us to the end of today's breakdown, one of the most jaw-dropping moments we've ever seen in the entire Sister Wives journey. Watching Kody cornered as truth after truth poured out wasn't just dramatic television. It was history in the making for this family. For so long, we've seen him hold the reins, but now we're witnessing what happens when those reins are finally ripped away. The unity of the wives, the courage of the children, and the undeniable evidence have shifted everything. Hi, I'm Sophia, and this is TLC's Sister Wives World. If you felt the weight of those revelations like I did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single update as this story continues to unfold. And I really want to hear from you. Whose voice hit you the hardest? Was it Meri's raw heartbreak, Gwen's unfiltered truth, Christine's bombshell receipts, or Janelle's calm dismantling of Kody's control? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is a conversation every Sister Wives fan needs to be part of. And don't forget, sharing this video helps our community grow. If you believe that standing up against manipulation, broken promises, and betrayal matters, then share this with your friends and family. Because the more we talk about it, the more we shine a light on the truth. The story of Sister Wives has always been about family, but now it's about resilience, independence, and women refusing to be silenced. And trust me, this fallout is just the beginning of a brand new chapter.